This year's Ophthalmology Innovation Summit ended with a heavyweight panel. The senior leaders of Alcon, Johnson & Johnson Vision Care, AMO, and Allergan shared the stage with OIS co-chair Bill Link and moderator Jim Mazo to share their secrets to acquiring and, more importantly, incorporating small, innovative ventures into their larger companies. The challenges are simple to understand. How can a big company buy a smaller one and not stifle the innovation or customer service connection that made the smaller company successful? It's something leaders like Jeff George, president and global head of Alcon, give a great deal of consideration.
From a brain drain perspective, you've got to make sure that you keep the talent. So, things, I think we're all familiar with leveraging milestones, leveraging earnouts to keep people involved, to keep people engaged. But I think a lot of it really comes down to culture and making people feel like they can be, themselves and be entrepreneurial in a bigger organization. I mean, Alcon this year will, be north of $11 billion in sales. It's a big organization, but that doesn't mean we don't have a lot of pockets of real entrepreneurialism. But they have to be nurtured, and sometimes you have to look at them from a different standpoint. Organizationally and structurally to protect the innovation that's happened so you don't squash it.
David Pyatt, CEO of Allergan, says acquiring companies need to be accommodating, but they also need to be realistic about how likely they'll be able to retain top talent long term. Let's hear what David has to say.
So I think you need to step back and be very honest with yourself and say, to the degree there's a likelihood certain people will leave, how do you transfer that knowledge to people who have been with the company, i.e. Allergan or Alcon, for a long period of time. And usually, in my experience, if you kind of mix cultures in a harmonious way, not you got to do it our way and or no way, you can learn from each other. And so I think really it's knowledge transfer and realism about what the team will look like at some point, 2, 3, 4 years in the future.
In this next clip, Ashley McAvoy, company group chairman of Johnson & Johnson Vision Care, agrees that retaining top talent is important, but acquiring companies also need to build strong teams to support the many facets of newly acquired technologies.
And I think we've learned you really have to be very honest, intellectual honesty around matching your talent strategy to the business strategy. So oftentimes we'll acquire technology with a brilliant entrepreneur who really that entrepreneur just wants to get going on the next generation. And yet the business strategy for value capture is about geographic scale up. And so, making sure that we have the right skill set is kind of number one. And I'd say number two, a couple things. One, we've learned from some of the sins of our past of monstrous acquisitions. So good luck with you around the supply chains can be really persnickety. And when you're trying to take a very complicated process and do a tech transfer to another asset base, we tend to very much underestimate that. And then you have to bring R&D experts in to go solve. And as we all know, we need high quality, reliable customer service, strong process capability, but at the same time, we need to be building a really robust market-leading pipeline. And so I guess what I would really learn is making sure you've got distinct separate teams to handle those business challenges.
In addition to assigning additional personnel, acquiring companies must make clear financial commitments up front to the acquired projects. Murthy Simambatla, president of Abbott Medical Optics, says this gives the new employees confidence that their projects will live on long after the deal is done.
Well, when you make the acquisition, you justify it on the basis of certain investments and certain returns over time. And the critical thing with the acquisition is, you've done your due diligence, the company's now part of your organization, you reassess where they are with respect to the strategic imperatives, and very quickly, in the case of Optimedica, for example, from day one, we ring-fence the budgets, not just for the projects that people were working on, but for second, third generation, potentially game-changing ideas. That does a few things. A, it keeps the team focused. You don't create this vacuum of what's going to happen to me now as part of this new company. Am I still going to have a project? What am I going to work on next? So you've created a pathway for people to be focused not just today, but with a view as to what's coming down the pike tomorrow. So that's pretty important to ring fence it. And once the team makes sufficient progress towards the objectives, then you start rolling it into the broader portfolio process within the organization.